Thank you for joining us. Thank you for participating in the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change's Town Hall on the Draft Beach Access and Management Policy of Jamaica. This consultation session is being led by the Honourable Colonel Charles Jr., Member of Parliament, Minister of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change. We do also have on Zoom Mrs. Audrey Sewell, CD, JP, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, with the technical support of Ms. Gillian Guthrie, who's next to me, Acting Chief Technical Director in the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change. Across from me at the other end of the seating arrangement is Mrs. Shalene Roy Myrie, Beaches Coordinator, National Environment and Planning Agency. And next to her right, is Dr. Kerry Wallace, Executive Director, the Tourism Enhancement Fund. Mr. Anthony McKenzie, Director, Environmental Management and Conservation Division, National Environment and Planning Agency, and Mr. Nalford Hyde, Project Manager, Tourism Enhancement Fund, will join us via Zoom to assist with your questions and your comments during the question and answer segment. Please note that this event is being recorded and a consultation report on today's proceedings will be prepared and posted on the Ministry's website. Our rapporteur is Ms. Maxine McDonough. Now, the Beach Access and Management Policy was tabled in the Houses of Parliament as a Green Paper in October in the lower house and November in the upper house, that's 2020. As part of the policy development process, the Ministry is required to consult key stakeholders and the general public to inform the finalization of the document prior to its submission to Cabinet and the Houses for approval as a national policy. To date, the Ministry has conducted 4 stakeholder consultations with the public sector, civil society organizations, the Jamaica Hotel and Tourism Association, and other private sector entities. Additionally, a media sensitization session was held in January. Written comments on the Green Paper should be sent to the Environment and Risk Management Branch in the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change. Comments may be sent via email to policycomments@megic.gov.jm. And that's, you could also send in hard copy to the Ministry at its offices at 16A Halfway Tree Road, Kingston 5, by February 28, 2021. And that's the last day of February because it's not a leap year this year. If you have any queries, you may also telephone 876-633-7500. That's 876-633-7500. Mondays to Thursdays between 8:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. and on Fridays, and that's 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. The document you can find online at now listen carefully, these ministries have long names and initials. That's www.mhurecc, that's mhurecc.gov.jm/policies/. The policy may also be viewed and read at all municipal corporations and all parish libraries. So you're facilitated, whatever parish you're in, go to the parish library. You'll find it there. All comments received during this town hall session, the previously held consultation sessions, as well as those in writing, will be taken into consideration in revising the draft policy. Once the policy is revised, a submission will be prepared requesting Cabinet's approval of the policy as a white paper. Once the document is approved, it will be tabled in the Parliament and thereafter implementation will commence. Comments and questions will only be taken after the presentations are complete. 30 minutes will be available for questions and comments. And may I beg you to make the questions and comments between 30 seconds and a minute, because if you write a big essay, we can't take the whole essay, right, in the thing. For Facebook, you look at Facebook, Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change. That's at MHURECCJM. Jamaica Information Service, you know that, very easy, at Jamaica Information Service. Or the Honorable Colonel Charles on Facebook as well, at P. Charles Jr., Jr., P. Charles Jr. On Twitter, Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, and that's again at MHURECCJM. Jamaica Information Service at JIS News. And again on Twitter, Honorable Colonel Charles, that's P. Charles at P. Charles Jr. That's Twitter. YouTube, Jamaica Information Service. Now, you have no excuse not to join in, participate, and learn. You're asked to keep your questions and comments brief, 30 seconds to a minute, as I said earlier on, to allow as many persons as possible to post their questions and comments and to get the responses during the time allotted. When posting, please indicate which of the presenters the question or comment is to be addressed to. And it is anticipated that we will have open, constructive, and cordial discussions on this matter of beach access and management, a most important national issue. Comments on the green paper should be sent within 26 days after this town hall meeting. And now we begin with the presentations. It's a pleasure to be sitting here with all of you, and you do know that I'm going to ask you, Minister, to start things off. The Honorable Colonel Charles Jr., MP, Minister, Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change. With a name as long as that, he better head to the beach frequently for a little relaxation. Minister?
It's a mouthful. But let me first thank you and say thank you to our distinguished moderator, Ms. Ellington, and to my fellow panelists, to friends from the media, and the team that has helped to put this together, as well as all of you that are joining us today on whatever platform that you are watching us on. And I'm happy to welcome you today, and as we continue the series of consultations, of successful consultations. You would have heard from Ms. Ellington that we have done 4 consultations thus far. And it is critical to us that these consultations are the platform for us to listen to Jamaica, for us to be able to answer your questions and to engage you on this very important national issue. The issue relating to our beaches is a sensitive one. Can be a vexing issue, and it is an issue which we intend to tackle with a view to achieving solutions that will lead to our outcome. And the Beach Access and Management Draft Policy focuses on us improving access rights to the beaches, as well as improving, very importantly, the quality of our beaches and the maintenance of our beaches. And we do so by putting forward a number of proposals that acknowledge the very important cultural and heritage identity that beaches have to us as Jamaicans, the importance of our beaches as just a part of what we're defined as a nation. Several persons travel to Jamaica just to get a touch, a piece of our sea, sun, and sand. And so we understand that our beaches form a very important part of the element of the definition of us as a country. And so the policy focuses on improving access rights, particularly to the foreshore, which I'm certain you will hear in greater detail. CTT, Guthrie, and others can give you more finite and detailed information. But that foreshore is the area that you would see uncovered and covered by the water, that little gravel area. And that is an area which is vested in the Crown, the government. And we want all Jamaicans to have access to that. And we know that this is something which requires balance, particularly in the consultation that we had with the Jamaica Hoteliers, that association. We would have seen and heard so many concerns as to how we are using our beaches. And so the policy looks also on that balance. Access, how we are taking care of our beaches, how we are going to be able to provide beaches that people can feel safe and secure in, and amenities, sanitization, and clean beaches, spaces where Jamaicans and our tourists alike can have an opportunity to enjoy, and so we can maximize the potential. So we're going to have a lot of discussions on those issues, and I look forward, as I said, to rigorous discussion, constructive criticism on an important issue to Jamaicans and to friends all across the world that see Jamaica as their second home. And we look forward to this stakeholder consultation being one which will allow for us to enjoy your participation online. And I'm certain that we will follow the protocol and allow for wonderful participation. I just want to, as I close, note that we are also recognizing the Combined Disabilities Association, and we're looking forward to hearing from them on the information they have and comments and concerns as it relates to us as we advance the beach access and management policy. There are several other issues which relate to other ministries, such as the co-management that we will have to speak about relating to the fishermen who ply their trade on the beaches, the maintenance and rehabilitation that's taking place in some of our beaches across the country, which I'm certain that Dr. Wallace will speak about, because TEF has a big part to play in that, as well as NEPA. And this is truly a comprehensive, cross-sectional, multi-stakeholder approach. And this is the approach that we have to take because of the importance of this issue. So thank you, and I hope that we'll have a wonderful engagement. I know that we will.
Thank you so much, Minister. Before we move forward, let me just make a correction. Looking down sometimes and reading going so fast, you might confuse an I for a J, which I did. So I want to correct that. The policy comments at GJC, I had said I to J, so let me do that. Policy comments at megjc.gov.jm. So now that we've corrected that, we can move on with the rest of the program. At this time, the Permanent Secretary is going to be addressing us, Mrs. Audrey V. Sewell, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment, and Climate Change.
Visiting the beach is a traditional pastime for many Jamaicans, and our beaches, which form an important part of our tourism, product, and fisheries sector, are world-renowned. Over the years, issues regarding access to and management of the island's beaches have been raised in our traditional media as well as by the general public. In response to the issues and concerns raised, the government has decided to develop a beach access and management policy for Jamaica. This draft policy was approved by the Cabinet and tabled in the Houses of Parliament as a green paper earlier this year and is now subject to consultations. As directed by the Cabinet, the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change will conduct consultations with a wide range of stakeholders as well as the general public on the draft policy, and we welcome your active participation in these sessions. To ensure that we have a robust policy which caters to the needs of all Jamaicans and our visitors, your feedback on this draft policy is essential. I therefore ask that you give careful consideration to the policy prescriptions contained within the draft document and invite your honest and informed feedback. The comments provided at these consultations will assist the Ministry in its revision of the draft prior to its submission to the Cabinet for approval as a national policy. I hope you are all energized, and we are anticipating constructive dialogue with practical recommendations on the way forward with respect to this important national issue. Jamaica is ours, and it is our responsibility to ensure that we all work together to make Jamaica the place of choice to work, raise families, and do business. for the benefit of present and future generations. I thank you all.
Thank you, Madam Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Audrey Sewell. And our next speaker is going to be speaking to the status of recreational beaches in Jamaica. From time to time, we hear people called in the talk show programs to say, look here, we don't have access to beach, we can't get on. What is the policy really? So let us hear now from Mrs. Shalene Roy Myrie of NEPA on the status of recreational beaches in Jamaica. See if you hear something you want to hear.
Good evening, everyone. This evening we'll be looking at, as was stated before, what is the status of beaches across Jamaica. We will first start off by looking at how many public beaches do we have. In keeping with the beach policy, we have approximately 76 beaches across the island, with Portland being the parish that has most of our beaches. As it relates to ownership of these 76 beaches, the vast majority of the beaches are categorized as government-owned or privately owned. 13 of the 76 beaches, the entrance fees range from $200 to $2,000 per person, and this fee is based on the amenities that are available at those particular beaches. In looking at the pie chart, you can see that, as was stated before, that most of our beaches are owned by government agencies, and these include the NRCA, or the Beach Control Authority, being NEPA, the National Land Agency, the Urban Development Corporation, and the municipal corporations. The remainder of the beaches, 35%, is owned by private entities. And it's important to note that even though some of these beaches are owned by private entities, they operate as public facilities. So the public is still able to access these beaches and the amenities within these beaches. Where the current status of our beaches are concerned, the majority of our beaches have been traditionally not been adequately maintained, and what you find is that over time they have deteriorated. What the government has done in response to this is twofold. So we're looking at activities that are being done by the Tourism Enhancement Fund, which is a larger project which you'll hear about later on this afternoon, as well as the National Resource Conservation Authority, or NEPA. We have a smaller project where we're focusing on light maintenance works on public beaches that we have a mandate to ensure that they're in a state that the public is able to access. And so these minor works also includes installation of signs. And from the photographs, you will see that's Portasika Beach, which that's an example of a beach that is well maintained, versus Jacob Taylor Beach in Silver Sands, which is in need of maintenance works. To date, what we have done in NEPA is we've carried out maintenance works on 15 beaches across 9 parishes. So these beaches include Helsha Bay, Marine Terminal in St. Catherine, Prospect Beach in St. Thomas, Trial Beach in Hanover, Copacabana Beach in St. Andrew, Negril Beach in Westmoreland. And for Negril in particular, what we have done, traditionally there have been access points that you are able to go onto the beach from Norman Manley Boulevard, and they've been overgrown. So what we have done to tackle that issue is to really ensure that the areas are clean and bushed. So that's a part of the maintenance activity there. We know we have Crane Road in St. Elizabeth, as well as Great Bay and Billy's Bay Fishing Beach, Salem in St. Anne, Boston Beach and Spring Gardens Beach in Portland, Hope Bay in Portland, and Bulls Bay in Hanover. So the works that are taking place on these beaches, including bushing and cleaning of the property, light landscaping, removal of derelict structures, painting of the structures, installation of concrete benches and tables, installation of recycling bins, garbage receptacles, and of course installation of signs. And that's just an example of what the sign looks like. One there is placed in Marine Terminal, which is in St. Catherine, and then you have a sign which indicates an access point along Norman Manley Boulevard in Negril. And this is just showing what we've done so far with the installation of the benches, the landscaping, the garbage receptacles, and the painting. I should also mention that this is something that agency started in 2019, and it is ongoing. In fact, we have we are conducting beach maintenance works as we speak. So this is something that the agency sees as something that is of grave importance. So we will continue on an annual basis to maintain the beaches that we have responsibility for, the public beaches that we have responsibility for. In addition to all of that, the agency we also conduct beach erosion monitoring. So just to give you a quick idea of what exactly we do, in terms of what coastal erosion is a natural process categorized by removal of sand along the shoreline. So if you see beaches where the sand is being washed away for any reason, that is considered erosion. Where accretion is the opposite of that, which is a deposition or the building of the beach by sediment or sand. So we at NEPA, we've been compiling erosion data for over 20 years, which represents 43 sites across 7 parishes. And as you can see there, that's an example of severe beach erosion that is taking place. Based on our trends, what we have found of the 43 sites that we're monitoring, 16 sites have been experiencing erosion. So overall, our data shows a trend of erosion for essentially most of our sites. It's mild erosion, while chronic erosion is at 25% or greater, and we've unfortunately been seeing this in Portland. So Portland has an average of 45% approximately erosion rate. So we have identified that this erosion is an issue, and we will continue to monitor it as we go along. So one of the things the public is interested in is, where do we find these beaches? Where can we get information about beaches across Jamaica? And what the National Environment and Planning Agency has done, we've created what is called the Jamaica Beach Guide, which is pretty easy to follow. It's accessible on our website, and it allows the public to have knowledge of where these beaches are, how to access them, information such as location, the state of the beach, if the fees are charged, and the amenities on the beach. And this, on the Jamaica Beach Guide, the information on the website is not exhaustive, and we are constantly populating the website with beaches. So what we're inviting the public to do, if there's a particular beach in your community that you think should be a part of the beach guide, submit the information to us. The agency will carry out its investigations to determine whether or not this is a beach that should be on the website. So just bear with us that this website is constantly being populated, so you can help us to ensure that we have covered over time all the beaches across Jamaica, so you're well aware of where to locate these beaches. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Charlene Roy Myrie from NEPA. And I bet you didn't know that there was a beach guide, a Jamaica beach guide that you could have access to. Preparing for our next speaker in just a while. Let me advise you that all the speakers you would have seen in the opening shot came here properly masked. We are, in fact, observing the physical distancing, but for the purposes of presentation, we have doffed the masks, and so you can see who is speaking, so you know, have a little bit more contact with people. Now I'm going to go to the Tourism Enhancement Fund, and to make that presentation is Dr. Carey Wallace. The topic is TEF Beaches Development Program. And Mr. Wallace, one of the things that many Jamaicans complain about is that when I prepare the beach and for the tourists, and nobody I think about the regular Jamaicans. So let me hear, you know.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. So the good news is that the TEF has a beaches development program that we focus on. The 76 public beaches that are available. We look at how we can go in and develop beaches, increments at a time, to provide more beaches for our local Jamaicans to benefit from. And I'm going to talk a little bit about them today. So how we approach these beaches is that we're polishing diamonds. Jamaica has been blessed to have some of the best natural beaches in the world. And so we make sure that when we go in, our interference doesn't spoil the natural beauty that's there, but it actually enhances it, puts in the basic infrastructure to ensure that it's amenable and comfortable to our Jamaicans, but we ensure that it's done in a very tasteful way. Some of the priorities that we consider is to make sure we choose beaches that are safe. So safe from reptiles, safe from areas that may put our people at risk. We make sure it's sustainable, both environmentally and economically, because one of the things that we do, we go in as a tourism enhancement fund and we do the projects to develop the beaches, but we want to ensure that afterwards that the operation of the beaches is such that it can sustain itself while making sure it is free to the general public. So we want it to be accessible as well, not just easy for our Jamaicans to get there, but for the disabled community as well, for them to have easy access to the beaches. We ensure it's aesthetically pleasing. One of the things we want to do is, from a tourism perspective, Jamaica competes with the best in the world. And so every development that we make on our natural resources, we want to make sure it continues to place Jamaica in that top echelons of the best in the world, anywhere. So we ensure it's well planned. All of the factors are considered, including sewage, including drainage, including anything that is required to ensure a sustainable success story from the beaches that we develop. And we make sure it's world class. Basically, we are saying that for Jamaica to become a first world country, all our investments will have to be at that standard. So if you notice the way we do our bus stops along the North Coast, we make sure it's at first world standards. When we're doing the Closed Harbour Beach project now, we're making sure it's at first world standards. All our investments, we believe Jamaicans deserve that, and we approach all our development projects with that in mind. So the essentials for the program are the restaurant, the bars, the shops, the lifeguard huts, parking, security, signage, utilities, Wi-Fi, crucial essential in these times, an entertainment area, and a unique feature. Unique feature meaning, and the best example I can use is what Emancipation Park has with that statue. Anywhere you see a picture of that statue, anywhere in the world you are, you know exactly where that location is. And that's what we want to do with our beaches, have a unique feature that's has synergies with the area, but when you take that selfie next to that unique feature, it's clear where you are in Jamaica. And one of the things that's crucial is that we ensure that there are revenue centers as part of the development of the beach, because the crucial thing is that we want to make sure it's free to the public. It's unfair to ask somebody who has lived in that community, who's been going to the beach all their lives, and all of a sudden we develop and now we have to charge them. So the idea is, in order to make it free, but to still earn enough to maintain it, to pay the lifeguards, to ensure it's cleaned well, to improve it even, we have these concessionaire opportunities with the restaurants, the bars, the shops, and so on, that will then be leased out to then earn, to then use to maintain the beaches. So that's our business model in our development. So over the next 3 years, we have, along with the committee for beaches, which is a cross-agency committee across government, UDC is on the committee, NEPA is on the committee, NRCA, the Ministry of Local Government, and so on. All of us and TPDCO, we meet once a month and we use all the factors, a holistic approach to selecting which beaches are to be placed on the schedule for us to invest in over the next 3 years. So we have 10 beaches now that are in the pipeline. Watson Taylor Park in Hanover, Success in St. James, Prairie in St. Anne, Rio Nuevo in St. Mary, Murdoch Beach in St. Mary, Winifred Beach in Portland, Rocky Point in St. Thomas, Guts River in Manchester, Alligator Pond in St. Elizabeth, and Crane Road in St. Elizabeth. So if you notice, it's nicely spread over the 4 quarters of the country to ensure that most communities will have relatively easy access to one of these world-class beaches that we're developing. In terms of the development process, we are very careful in designing it well. Designing it well, so we start with a tender for design. So we put out a tender and get a design team in. Then we do an internal consultation to ensure that they understand exactly the task that's before them. We then do a public consultation with the community. And this is before the consultants put a pen to paper. we consult the community to ensure that they are involved from the get-go. What they'd like to see, what they would not want to see, is included in the design. We then get that preliminary design, and we go back to the community with now something on paper to say, based on all that, the calculations, the topography, the coastal engineering, everything, this is what we are presenting. The community then has an opportunity to tweak this design, and we then get the final design that we take to procurement and get the necessary approvals to then do the construction and then have the operation. So that's the development process of our beach. Very heavy on consultation, very heavy on design, because when you do it that way, it guarantees you that the finished product that you put out there will stand the test of time, will be guaranteed to be successful. Beaches that we've completed in the last few years: Burwood Beach in Trelawney, licensed in St. Thomas, and I have some figures there giving an idea of the cost that we've spent on those beaches in the past. Boston Beach in Portland, and Otter Bay or Markenstone Beach in St. Mary. And that's, I'll speak more, I guess, when the time comes during the question and answer.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Kerry Wallace of the Tourism Enhancement Fund. I have a problem, though. You didn't mention Clarendon. No beach not there, Clarendon? You're thinking the same thing? Oh, yes, because you have particular interest in Clarendon.
I'm ready to tackle Dr. Wallace.
Yes, we'll get back to that, though. But two other things I'd like to raise with you, not for you to answer now, but I love the idea of the unique features. And might I suggest that there's some collaboration with the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts to help to develop, because it's a collaborative thing. So many different aspects and sectors can be integrated in this business. You understand? So the performing arts, you can have something from the performing arts there sometimes, but definitely the School of Art, for example, you know, to design something there. All right. And we are talking about public beaches, right, sir? And I want to make that clear, not private beaches, but public beaches. I know that you may have some questions about private beaches that will come later on, and why some are private and why a particular one or two or three, but we'll deal with that later on in the program. We have our last presenter before we come to your comments and questions, and that's Ms. Gillian Guthrie of, the topic is the Beach Access and Management Policy. What is this policy? Have you contributed to it? You still have a chance to contribute, because after today, you'll have an opportunity up until February 28 to do so. Ms. Guthrie.
Good. Thank you very much. So why did the ministry decide to do a beach access and management policy for Jamaica? We identified some key issues that we wanted to, that we thought that were related to our beaches that we wanted to seek to address to provide the policy prescription. Some of these main issues are the unavailability of access point to beaches, the lack of beaches of a good standard for the public, meaning beaches with amenities so that you can recreate comfortably on these beaches, objection of some members of the public to the payment of fees or the level of fees required for accessing these public bathing beaches, the loss of physical and visual access to the coastline due to extensive coastal development, and we call this ribbon development, and the rerouting of major roads in some cases, the divestment of former public beaches to private interests without consultations, and the prohibitive costs of access to beaches that have been divested. Additionally, there are some other issues related to informal settlements on beach lands. There are some beaches across the island that we have this situation existing. The lack of maintenance and amenities at several of the island's public bathing beaches. There are no beaches gazetted under Section 52 of the Beach Control Act, and this is a section of the Act where the authority, the Beach Control Authority, can have consultations with the owner-operator of beaches and the relevant municipal corporation to fix the fee for access and the poor coastal water quality. Of course, issues related to climate change, coastal erosion, loss of seagrass beds and degradation of the reef structures, lack of maintenance of sea defenses. These are physical sea defenses like groin, sea walls, breakwaters, the building on sand dunes, inadequate safety measures at some of the island's beaches. We've had issues with noise pollution on beaches. Some persons have parties until all hours at varying levels. Sargassum also is also another emerging issue related to our beaches. So we sought to try to address many of these issues in the beach access and management policy. So we have a photo here because when we speak about a beach, there are different elements of a beach. And we have divided a beach into basically the foreshore and the backshore. And the foreshore is the area of land adjacent to the sea where the tide ebbs and flows. Basically the wet part of the sand or gravel. That's the foreshore. And the backshore is that area after the natural line of vegetation. So we consider the beach to be of two key elements, the foreshore and the backshore. And then what is very interesting in that in the 1956 legislation that governs the island's beaches, there's no definition of the term beach. And so we have proposed a definition, and so if and when the policy is approved, we will amend the legislation to include the definition for the term beach. And we have defined beach as any coastal lands, whether natural or man-made, that is generally composed of sand or similar sediment, and is constituted of both the foreshore and the backshore. And then we've gone on further to define what is a public beach, because of course, you know, there are private beaches, commercial beaches. So a public beach is defined as any beach that is owned, managed, or leased by a government entity. And Mrs. Roy Myrie also mentioned who those government entities are: the National Land Agency, the municipal corporations, the National Environment and Planning Agency. Those are some of the, and UDC, for instance, are some of the government entities to which the public has a right of use for lawful recreation or easement to or over the area by prescription, donation, or as per Section 14 of the Beach Control Act, has amenities, security features, and meet public health standards. We've also defined public bathing beach, and of course these are beaches owned, managed, or leased by a public entity and are free of charge to the public. So we'll have these beaches which are free of charge, and we will designate those as public bathing beaches. Then we have public recreational beaches, and the distinction is that these are beaches where there will be a fee charged for either entrance or use of the amenities. And then, of course, we have commercial recreational beaches, and these are beaches which are owned by a private entity for which are fees charged for entry and or use of the facilities. And then in terms of the institutional framework governing the management of the island's beaches, we have several government entities. We have the Natural Resources Conservation Authority through the National Environment and Planning Agency, and this is the Beach Control Authority. So we talked about the Beach Control Act. So this is the agency that is responsible for regulating and managing the island's beaches. Then we have the municipal corporations. They also own or manage a lot of the island's public bathing beaches. The National Fisheries Authority, that has a role to play in fishing beaches. The Tourism Product Development Company, which is responsible for helping to develop the tourism product. The Tourism Enhancement Fund, and Dr. Wallace already indicated the efforts the TEF is making in rehabilitating many of the island's public bathing beaches. The Urban Development Corporation and the Commission of Lands. We have a lot of legislation governing beaches, so I won't go into all of them, but the key one is the Beach Control Act of 1956, which has several regulations under it governing safety, licensing arrangements, and issues related to hotel, commercial, and public recreational beaches. There's also the Natural Resources Conservation Authority Act, which is the principal environment legislation for Jamaica. The Town and Country Planning Act, which deals with physical planning. And under the Town and Country Planning Act, we have development orders. And in these development orders are listed all of the public bathing beaches. And there are policy prescriptions in the development orders about these beaches. We also have the policy, framework, and procedure manual for the divestment of government-owned lands. And why this is important is because in this particular document, it specifies already that the preferred option for public beaches or beach lands is not to sell them, but to have leasehold. That is a preferred option. And of course, the master plan for sustainable tourism development, because of course our beaches are a key part of our tourism product. Under the policy, what is the purpose of the policy? The purpose of the policy essentially is to increase access to the foreshore at a minimum by the public and to improve the standard of the beaches available to the public. Our vision for the policy is that Jamaica's bathing beaches are preserved, well managed for present and future generations, and provisions is made for adequate access to these beaches for the enjoyment of Jamaicans and visitors alike. And then there are several policies and principles governing the beaches in the policy. And one of the big things is that beaches are a national asset and must be preserved and maintained for present and future generations. Coastal developments must be planned and managed. And existing beach access opportunities should be maintained, new or increased public access provided, including in new developments. And of course, the traditional rights of fishermen must be preserved. The policy has 6 goals, and one is related to the establishment of an effective institutional arrangement for the regulation and management of beaches. The second one is increased physical access to the foreshore, the floor of the sea, and the water column above it. Expansion of beach-related recreational opportunities. The fourth goal is institution of measures for pollution control, waste management, and the safety for the protection of users of the coastal resources. The fifth is management of the fishing beaches and protection of the traditional access rights of fishermen. And the sixth is the protection of the coastal resources and increasing resilience to the impacts of climate change. And these 6 goals have strategic actions which relate to them, and we have policy measures that relate to these strategic actions. So when we speak about access, we're not only talking about physical access, we also talk about visual access, because this is very, very important. Let us talk about some of these measures, policy measures as relates to access. So where we have fees charged for public recreational beaches, these will be fixed in line with the Regulation 52 of the Beach Control Act. And as I said before, this is where the Beach Control Authority, which is the NRCA, will consult with the owner-operator of these beach lands and the relevant municipal corporation to fix the fee for access. And these are the public recreational beaches. For commercial recreational beaches, these are beaches, of course, owned by private interests. And again, the NRCA, in consultation with the owner-operator, will fix the fee for these commercial recreational beaches, which need a license to operate. Hotels will be encouraged to implement a beach pass system to facilitate access by the public to the hotel beaches. And of course, this is something that we will promote, that hotels can have like day passes for the public to be able to access the beaches which are associated with hotels. The right of the public to walk along the foreshore and bathe in the sea will be provided through an amendment to the Beach Control Act. And right now, the foreshore and the floor of the sea are vested in the Crown. That means that the government has responsibility for the foreshore and the floor of the sea. Unless there is a title, a registered title, that gives the private property owner that right. There are not many of those. So what we want to do is to make it a right for the public to have access to the foreshore at a minimum and to bathe in the sea through an amendment to the Beach Control Act. And of course, access to the coast will be planned and managed to protect coastal resources as well as public safety. And very importantly, we want to have a minimum distance of between 8 to 30 meters adjoining the foreshore to allow persons to have access. Very importantly, the policy also recommends that public beach lands not be sold unless approved by cabinet. Also, the policy recommends exclusive use of the foreshore will not be approved, whether by lease or license, or except as per a registered title or in the interest of public safety, in the case of port and harbor facilities and oil platforms, and in the case of overwater structures where security considerations have to be taken into account. But other than those exceptions, exclusive rights or use of the foreshore will not be approved, whether by lease or license. And of course, all public beaches will be reserved in development orders. And all beaches in which the NRCA has an interest shall be accessible to the public. The development of a beach inventory and plan for each parish is also something that is also advocated in the draft policy. And of course, all of these beaches will have signage. And we want these access points, as Mrs. Roy Myrie said in her presentation, that there will be a sign that shows you, how do we access this beach? How does the public access this beach? And so we will also gazette these access points. Reservation of beach access for the public in close proximity to the beach when divesting beach land is also recommended. Diversion of coastal roads to create exclusive access for development should be avoided. Development on the seaward side of coastal main roads should also be so arranged as to provide windows to the sea. So no longer are we advocating for this ribbon development. We want not only that we have physical access to the coastline, but we also want to have visual access to the coastline. Of course, there are some beaches that we will call seaside parks. And these seaside parks are beaches in which we do not recommend that you bathe because of safety considerations. But these are parks where you can sit and relax and enjoy and take in the vista. And these types of beaches where you are not allowed to bathe because of safety considerations, we will designate as seaside parks. And these seaside parks, we are recommending that admission to these public ones be free or at a minimal charge. And divestment of the seaside parks owned by the public entities shall be by leasehold only. So this is in line with the policy prescription that beach lands are not to be sold. They should only be leased unless approved by cabinet. The siting and design of developments along the coast to allow the public physical and or visual access to the coast. And in terms of management issues, the policy prescriptions are that there will be a national beach management program. And of course, we've started elements of that program already. NEPA has taken the lead on that as a beach control authority. But the work being done by the Tourism Enhancement Fund, NEPA, TPDCO, and others will be part of this national beach management program. We are also advocating in the policy that civil society organizations, local-based community groups, where they have the capacity, that they be so empowered to be allowed to manage and sustain the use of beaches within their communities. Also, where there are opportunities to lease beaches owned by the government to the private and the community-based organizations, that will be promoted. Because, of course, we need to have funds to maintain the beaches. And so in some regards, some ways, we will have to still lease beaches to private interests and to the community-based organizations. But we ask that where these lease arrangements exist, that they make sure that as many Jamaicans as possible, the average Jamaican, can have access to these beaches. Of course, the NRCA, which is the Beach Control Authority, will identify and take steps to upgrade the beaches which it owns, including those which may be potentially leased to commercial interests. And where public beaches to be acquired for use by a commercial entity, the right of the public to access a beach should be preserved and a license granted under the Beach Control Act rather than a lease. Offshore coastal properties. Now, many of us may not know that Jamaica is an archipelago. It has over 78 islands, rocks, and keys. And these offshore coastal properties we're advocating in the policy, owned by the Crown, those which are owned by the Crown, should not be sold. All coastal lands currently held by the government and vested in the Crown, if being divested, will not provide for private property rights for an area 30 meters wide inland from the high water mark, and this is to allow for access. And the NRCA, in a collaboration with the Town and Country Planning Authority and the local planning authorities and the National Land Agency and other government entities, will continue to pursue the policy of reservation of beach properties in subdivisions, direct acquisition, because one of the big things with the Beach Control Authority is that where there is a need to create beaches in the interest of the public, the authority has the mandate to do so. So where we don't have adequate beaches, the authority has the mandate to acquire lands to create beaches to allow the public to be able to recreate comfortable on these beach lands. So we will direct acquisition or acceptance of donations of properties from private property owners. And just to say too that we have in the past private property owners donating beach lands to the NRCA through the National Environment and Planning Agency in the public interest. So we have examples of those. Of course, In keeping with Section 12 of the Beach Control Act, the authority will identify and acquire suitable properties, as I said before, in the public interest for use as beaches or seaside parks, and whenever the opportunity arises or where the ecological sensitivity demands it. One of the big things that we want to do with access is to make information available to the public. So the NRCA issues beach licenses. So if you need to do an activity in the foreshore, the floor of the sea, you have to get a license from the authority. So we want to make these licenses accessible to the public. So one of the things that the policy advocates is the development of a register. So where you have beach licenses which are issued, renewed, suspended, or revoked, all of that information will be in a register which is accessible to the public for inspection. And of course, the NRC, in consultation with the relevant local public health departments and the local planning agencies, will ensure that warning signs are placed at conspicuous places on public beaches, advising of any hazards that the beach may pose to public safety. And of course, the NRCA will continue to monitor beach activities to ensure that the beach safety regulations are observed. And this is a big issue about the water sports regulations. And the water sports regulations of 1985 will be amended with the revision of the Jamaica Tourist Board Act. And this is relating to beach safety as it relates to motorized marine vehicles. The regulatory and resource management agencies of central and local government will develop partnerships with stakeholders and civil societies to improve monitoring and enforcement of coastal water quality standards. And the owners and operators of beaches also will be asked to develop programs and plans to monitor coastal water quality. And the health departments are asked to institute and implement a recreational water quality monitoring program with a specific emphasis on water quality at public bathing and recreational beaches. The owners, in terms of noise, owners and operators of beaches shall ensure that beach users do not create noise at such a level that disturbs either those persons at the beach or the neighboring properties or wildlife on the coast, because some persons may not know, but some marine life are disturbed by noise and light. And so we have to also regulate noise pollution, not only for people, but also for the marine life that is at the beach. Noise levels at functions held on public bathing and public recreational beaches with a duration of more than 5 hours, should not exceed 70 decibels. Informal settlements. We have some informal settlements on some beach lands across the island. And wherever those informal settlements are identified, they will be brought to the attention of the authorities. And the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change is in the process of doing an informal settlement survey, and beach lands are included in that survey. Of course, we also have beach sand quarrying. This is a major issue, and in response to that, the National Environment, the NRCA, the National Environment and Planning Agency, has developed guidelines for the quarrying of beach sand, and this document will be used by the authority in the terms of their issuing of permits and licenses for sand quarrying, beach sand quarrying. One of the big issues is the management of fishing beaches and the protection of the traditional rights of fishermen, because we talk a lot about bathing and recreational beaches, but we don't talk a lot about the fishing beaches. One of the policy prescriptions in the draft document is that the prescriptive rights of fishermen will be preserved by the NRCA in accordance with the provisions of the Beach Control Act. The need for safe harbor by fishermen must be paramount in consideration of applications for a license for the use of the foreshore. And you'll recall that I said if you need to do any activities in the foreshore, the floor of the sea, you must get a license from the NRCA. And the National Fisheries Authority will work in conjunction with the NRCA and other relevant government bodies and NGOs to secure the tenure of fishers on designated fishing beaches. The National Fisheries Authority will prescribe measures for the management and development of fishing beaches. And very importantly, the National Fisheries Authority will encourage fisher groups, where they have the capability to manage these fishing beaches. They will also be empowered to do so. And we have some beaches which are both fishing and bathing, and the policy advocates for co-management strategies to be developed for these joint fishing and bathing beaches. And then the Public Health Department and the National Fisheries Authority will continue to monitor these fishing beaches to ensure that appropriate sanitary conveniences are in place so that both the fishers and the general public are comfortable in accessing these fishing beaches. Of course, areas will be delineated and licenses will be issued for activities that will be allowed in terms of mariculture activities. And these mariculture activities will be regulated by the National Fisheries Authority. One of the things with fishing beaches is that the National Fisheries Authority is of the view that right now we need to rationalize or strategically rationalize the number of fishing beaches. And so at this point, no new fishing beaches will be created, but the idea is to ensure that the existing fishing beaches are brought up to a standard that the fishers and the general public can have ease of access and are comfortable on these beaches. And then through the cooperation of the various ministries and other agencies involved in managing the coastal areas, the government will establish rules for the tenure of fishing beaches and promote improved conditions of fisherfolk operating on such beaches. One of our last things is about decision making and climate change. So we will take an ecosystem-based approach to the management of beaches. Projections of the impact of climate change on the beaches will be taken into account in the planning of development on beach lands. And of course, some members of the public may know, if they don't know also already, we have state of the climate reports for Jamaica, and these are online. These kinds of documents must be utilized in taking decisions where we are planning for developments on beach lands. Structures above the mean high water mark shall be located behind the natural sand dune or ordinary line of vegetation. Where we have coastal developments, they must take climate change into account. One of the things that we have here is that because some of our beaches are eroded and severely eroded, especially those on the eastern side of the island, in the past we have used technologies to help with the receding coastline. And so we may have to do that in the short to medium term while we seek to rehabilitate our natural sea defenses, meaning our coral reefs, our seagrass beds, or mangroves. So we may have to put in use of other technologies, other man-made structures to help to secure the beaches and the coastline while the natural sea defenses are rehabilitated. And of course, one of the main things, of course, is this development and dissemination of information to the public on our beaches. And of course, Mrs. Roy Meyer in her presentation also mentioned the Jamaica Beach Guide, which provides a lot of information to the public on the state of the island's beaches. And more will be disseminated by various key stakeholders. In terms of coastal zone monitoring, there will be a program in place to preserve the island's beaches, taking into account the impacts of climate change. And setbacks will be monitored to ensure that there's no encroachment within these setback limits, and the adoption of erosion rate-based construction setback rules will be implemented where applicable. So setback from the coast is going to be important as we grapple with the effects of climate change. And after all of that, a whole mouthful, I'm hoping there are much more in the policy, more details in the policy. And we are inviting the public to access the document, read carefully, read well, and provide their feedback. I should also let you know that there is a 5-year implementation plan as part of the policy. The policy also has 4 appendices. One includes recommendations of legislation that we may need to amend. So that is also a part of the document. So we invite the public to access the document, to read carefully, and to make submit your written comments to the ministry, and of course your oral comments today, so that we can take those into account in revising the document. Thank you very much.
For comprehensive delivery there, Ms. Gillian Guthrie, And you've heard about the policy. Now there are a whole pile of comments and questions. I'm going to go straight into them. There's one from a comment, because we had said comments and questions. From Peter Ann Baker, Jamaican people need easier and better access to our beaches, not just reservations. No future private or public coastal construction should be approved without providing access to the beach. Hear that? No future private or public coastal construction should be approved without providing access to the beach. Existing properties should be given a maximum of 3 years to establish access to beaches they control. So that is one there. And that was on Facebook. On Twitter, Tiffany says, how about a quarter period for the maintenance instead of a year? Have a budget for that? Don't know who wants it. How about a quarter period for the maintenance instead of a year? Or yes, Dr. Wallace? I don't know.
I'm trying to understand.
I don't quite get it either.
Right. So is she saying that we have lease arrangements only for quarters rather than a full year?
I'm not
I
certain.
think that's a technicality what we look at when the time comes to and looking at the operation of the beach to see what is most feasible. At the end of the day, what we're after is a business model that earns enough so that it can cover the revenue and cover the expenses and the maintenance of the beach, and upkeep and even upgrading, so that it continues to improve like a private business, that it's getting better and better each time.
While you were presenting, you spoke about a fixed fee, and it dawned on me I should ask, do you mean a fixed fee that is universal across the island? So when you go to a beach, it is X amount, whether it's in Portland or Westmoreland, or is it a fixed fee that is like an agreed fee for each beach?
It is an agreed fee for each beach. So it is something, a consultation with the NRCA, which is the Beach Control Authority, the owner-operator of the beach, and the municipal corporation.
Great. Thank you. Question, what rights do hoteliers and other private holders have to impose penalties on persons who are found on the beaches adjacent to their properties, and what types of fines or other punishments currently exist for persons found to be in breach? I don't know. I see you putting a glass to your head there, Doc. I don't know. You don't know that? I don't know. Is there... Yes?
Online from NEPA, probably.
Mr. McKenzie, you are online, so let me bring you in from NEPA. Would you like to take that one? Did you hear the question? What rights do hoteliers and other private holders have to impose penalties on persons who are found on the beaches adjacent to their properties, and what types of fines or other punishments currently exist for persons found to be in breach?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ellington. Yes. Right, a beach property owner or hotelier doesn't have any right with respect to properties adjacent to them, with respect to their particular property. And I just want to quickly clarify a point that was made earlier. Now, the beach, as Ms. Guthrie mentioned, is comprised of both the foreshore and the backshore. Now, the backshore is, to a large extent, comprised of perhaps sand, but also terra firma, solid land. And it's property that either is owned by a private individual or company or the government of Jamaica, right? So so there's the foreshore, which is vested in the Crown, and then the backshore, which could be privately owned as well. Now, the regulations allow for the licensing of the foreshore and the floor of the sea. So a hotelier would have a license. Now, the regulations provide for certain measures, certain prescriptions that the licensee has control over. Now, if there are breaches, then actions can be taken pursuant to the regulations under the Beach Control Act. And those breaches would be addressed by the Beach Control Authority, NEPA.
So much for your input. We have a question, and the person wants you to answer this, Dr. Wallace. Tiffany has a question. Why wasn't Clarendon on the list? And Clarendon has 2 beaches with potential, Welcome Beach and Rocky Point Beach. Why aren't those in consideration? Talk to us. And Jackson Bay, see that now?
Well, there are many beaches across Jamaica, and these 10 would be what would just be in the pipeline, but we are getting to all beaches across Jamaica. We do as TEF, we do investments that facilitate beaches. So, for instance, Farka Beaches is in Clarendon, isn't it? And we've done we fixed the roads to Farka Beach, and that has helped that community quite a lot.
Which beach is this?
Farka Beach, it's called?
Okay. So you fix the road leading to that?
Exactly. So it is contributing to the beaches, the development of the beach activity, but in terms of formally on the beaches development program, those 10 are the ones that we have.
Yes, Minister.
Just for the relating to the comment that the Minister of Tourism has actually come to Rocky Point and to Welcome Beach and to the Mineral Bath and Salt River, and has toured that area with an intention to put in place some development for that to be a space that has potential for tourism. And so we will be writing, we have written already to the ministry, and I imagine that they'll be speaking to TEF about that space in terms of its development in a comprehensive way.
Thank you. Well, we've taken a comment from...
Even then, we've started with programs for tourism in that area, Salt Spring, for instance, but it's not a beach on the 10. So we are doing so much. We have hundreds of projects on the ground right now as we speak. But in terms of the beaches development project, those are the 10 that I presented today.
Thank you, Dr.
But we have
Wallace.
touched every single parish and almost every single community.
Thank you. The first comment was Facebook. The second, the question was from Twitter. Now, on your account, sir, Mr. Minister Charles, a fisherwoman says, the people need legal access to the beaches no matter where they are from. There's no need to go through the hotel. Just like if you come to Miami, you can go directly to the beach with no problem. The beach is a national park. Would you like to comment on that, sir? Briefly?
And I think that we are speaking ad idem. The concepts are aligned. What this policy is about providing access rights to our people, and improving the beach quality and making sure that at the minimum, as was said, that foreshore area is an area which all Jamaicans and persons who will be spoken to and engaged to be responsible in how we maintain and use the beaches will have access to.
Okay. From the GIS platform, here's a question. Is there any thought being given to Helsha Beach? It's almost entirely eroded. The structure there requires great formalities and design. Shall I ask you to take that one? Yes? Yes? You're nodding. You're going to answer that?
Well, in terms of Helsha Beach, the agency has identified that the erosion issue, as you saw in the presentation. We have taken steps. The first one being we are in discussions with the Korean government to install a monitoring tower, video monitoring system that is able to give us data in terms of erosion trends on the beach. And through that project, what we're hoping to do is to expand that project into actual rehabilitation works. So from that, the collation of data, or the data that tower will provide, will give us information that we're able to inform a restoration project for the beach. So it's in the pipeline. We haven't forgotten Helsha. The agency is in constant dialogue with the fishers on the beach. So it is something that we're actively looking to assist in the erosion problems. And I should also mention that the agency, in collaboration with the TEF, we're looking to do what we call a master plan. So that master plan will look at the beach in its entirety in terms of a holistic development on the beach, which looks at socioeconomic issues as well as the erosion problems on the beach, to make sure we have a management system that is able to take care of all the issues that's affecting the beach. So the master plan will be a guide to the restoration of Helsha Beach.
Thank you very much. You know, I recall, could it have been the NRCA years ago, had from ridge to reef, and what they were in fact saying, everything you do anywhere affects everything going right down to the sea. And so we have to take responsibility for some of what is happening, you know, so we can get into that at the other public consultation. From YouTube now, Doreen Duncan. Other Caribbean islands have policies that make all beaches public has NEPA explored this policy? That is, not making any other beaches available for private purchase from here on forward. And also, how does the law consider swamps or other wetlands converted into beaches? That's you again, Charlene. Yes?
Mr. Mackenzie will take
Mr.
that
Mackenzie,
one.
you are on Zoom. Zoom in, please.
Right.
Mr. Matt?
Thank you very much again for that,
Yes.
that question. I think the idea of the policy again is to move towards ensuring that we have equitable and equal access to all the areas of our coastline and our foreshore. So, like other Caribbean islands, the English-speaking Caribbean, we have the same jurisprudence in terms of the foreshore and the setbacks and so on. We are wanting to reinforce, and that is what the objective of the policy is, to ensure that we have access, perpendicular access from land, as well as the lateral access along the foreshore. That is the purpose, really, the major objective of this of the policy. On the matter of the question of our coastal wetlands, the policy also is very clear. Goal number 5 recognizes the interrelationship between the other coastal features and our beach, and especially in the context of the issues associated with climate change. Then our wetlands, our coastal vegetation, the seagrass beds or coral reefs are part of the system that we want to ensure that these features are protected and properly managed to ensure that our beaches are resilient and available going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mackenzie. I'm going to point this one at you. There are so many comments and questions. If there is, and this is to you, Ms. Guthrie,
Yes.
if there is right of access to the shoreline, will it also include the right of transit along the shorelines? Mm-hmm. And how will the policy treat with public access rights and their enforcement? And how can the public access beaches and shorelines that are blocked by houses and hotels? Visual, you spoke about physical access and visual access.
Okay, so
enough things there.
Yes. So one of the policy prescriptions in the draft document is that we want to have access to the foreshore at a minimum as a right. And so we want to amend the Beach Control Act to provide for that right. And so that would allow the public to have access to walk along and to recreate along the foreshore at a minimum. We also want to be able to identify access points to the coast. So access points to the coast will be such that they will be identified, they will be gazetted, there'll be signage, and so everyone should know how it is that they access the coast in any one area. So it is a comprehensive program to allow for the public to have access.
All right, thank you. Carlene on Instagram, thank you for joining, Carlene. I appreciate this forum for information sharing. I hope that forums such as this can be incorporated for some of the other future proposals and information sharing. And then Sondern, legislation has to be revised to avoid harassment of tourists on the hotel beaches as the access to the public is being abused by drug sellers and unlicensed vendors. You want to take that, Dr. Wallace? Hotel. TF.
Right. Well, it's a challenge that tourism has grappled with over decades. One of the things that our minister is presenting is tourism, especially coming out of COVID, is inclusive tourism. And when I say inclusive, not all inclusive, but Jamaicans inclusive tourism. So that with the kind of technology that affords for visitors to have access and information to all parts of Jamaica and the distribution channels that are there to make it easy for persons to be all over Jamaica can create a situation where every Jamaican can benefit from the tourism dollar. And when that is done, we believe that there's no need to concentrate on the hotels on the North Coast to go there to try and access money when you can have a beach in Clarendon or anywhere you are, that you can have an Airbnb operation, for instance, and you are a tourism entrepreneur making money from the God-blessed assets that we've had that is spread right across the length and breadth of Jamaica. So I really believe that there's an opportunity here to convert the tourism dollar into opportunities for Jamaicans, regardless of where they are in Jamaica, because we've just been blessed with so many assets right across Jamaica.
Opportunities for Jamaica. Yes, Minister.
And to add to that, part of what we're trying to do, which is why we have these consultations, which is why we are saying to Jamaicans, give us your comments, let us listen to you, let us work together, is because we want Jamaicans to own the responsibility. We want you to know this is your beach. Getting access to the beach, improving the quality of the beach, means that we also have a responsibility to make sure that we maintain the standard of the beach. And we have discussions and prescriptions in the policy that speak to co-management, where we involve the community, where we involve the persons that inhabit the space, so they become owners and responsible over the benefit that will flow from that space. The reality is this is our beach. If it is our beach, we have to take care of our thing.
Well, somebody wants a question answered about Fidem Beach, and it says, Sharifa Wilson, can we get a status on Winifred Beach in Portland? We know somebody was going to ask that, because that has been a quarrelsome area. Lots of people have felt that it's not been treated right. Who wants to take on that one, Winifred Beach?
Well, the good news is that we have put out on our development process, we are down the wicket with Winifred. We've had design consultants selected, and we have, not selected, we have had the bidding meeting, I forget the technical term for it, where they come in and meet with us, all the persons who have bidded, and they've also had a site inspection where they've gone down and looked at the location and so on. So the next thing on our development process is that consultation with the community. To be fair, Winifred Beach, we've recognized the sensitivities of Winifred Beach, and so we've had consultations even before we went ahead with including them on the development plans. And I think we are sufficiently sensitive to the various stakeholders. It's a beautiful beach. We've already invested in the roads leading to that beach as a TEF and in conjunction with the NWA. And I think what we're after is taking that gem again, polishing it off, and presenting it in such a way that it enhances. It's a catalyst in that part of Portland that creates business opportunities and wealth for all the community around it. And that's what we're after.
People want to know that the beach won't be taken away from them. That is what's been in the public discourse for years. Another one on the JIS YouTube says, and this is M. Christie, the policy suggestions on water quality management are very weak. This is a perfect opportunity to review the marine recreational water standards with the EHU. Is this being considered? Policy, so I'm turning over to you, Ms. Guthrie.
So, yes, we have in the policy prescription that the Public Health Department, which the EHU is a part of, which is the Environmental Health Unit of the Ministry of Health, that they should have a robust recreational water quality monitoring program. And so that robust water quality monitoring program would include any standards that need to be established, any policies that need to be updated, legislation that need to be amended going forward, and to have a program for periodic and systematic monitoring of the coastal water quality and the recreational water quality across the island.
There is a comment from Sandra Scarlett on Facebook. She says the beaches and rivers are part of Jamaica's heritage, so why does it seem like they want to take it all and privatize it? If they are going to privatize the beaches, there should be a gap in each area to let the local public have free access to them. Dr. Wallace, I'm going to ask you to touch this very quickly, because you need to speak about the public beach versus private beaches, and then this thing now. I think sometimes when they hear about the fees to get in, it resonates privatization.
Understood. Well, our model is to ensure that there's no charge coming in. And the way we do that, again, is we build out the facilities. So it costs us more from the start. The capital that we take to invest will be more, because we have to build the extra shops, we have to build the extra bars and restaurants and all these revenue generators, the revenue centers that can allow the concessionaire to make enough from those leases that they have, rather than having to charge the public when they come in. That way it's free access to the public. But the quality, the standard of the beach is such that it's world class, it's first world. You go there, you are treated with the dignity and respect that you deserve as a Jamaican. To have gazebos, have kiosks, have clean decks and boardwalks and change rooms and restrooms. You know, we deserve that as Jamaicans, and that's what we're doing. It's going to cost more to invest in each one, but at the end of the day, it will be sustainable economically, and it'll be something exemplary that people will want to go. So the person who takes the concession for the restaurant will make so much money because it's such a popular beach.
So you're saying then, am I hearing you say that you are saying that what we want is that for people not to have to pay to enter?
Correct.
So how do we work that out with what Ms. Gottfried said about a fixed rate?
Okay, so if the policy prescribes different scenarios. There are some beaches where you have free access, you don't pay, there will be no great development on these beaches. These are beaches where persons can just go to. There will be beaches, though, that you will have to have amenities. These are mostly our popular beaches. And these amenities have to be maintained over time. And so, as Dr. Wallace just said, there will be some monies required for maintenance going forward. And so, in this case, fees may need to be charged, but the fees charged must be in a consultative process. And that consultative process will involve the Beach Control Authority, which is the NRCA, and they have the public interest at heart in terms of, as I said, fixing the fee. Fixing the fees and the agreed fee, taking into account the interest of the public. And so these fees, of course, are to help to maintain the beach to the world-class standard that Dr. Wallace had prescribed. But you will have some beaches which are free. You can have free access to the amenities, but then there are other beaches now where you may have to pay for access and or to the amenities or just to the amenities alone.
One of the challenges that some people have raised is this: why should I have to pay to enter a beach and then I'm told that I can't carry my food? Dr. Wallace, that sounds like you.
Well, our business model is such that we don't plan to charge them. The TEF will have the capital to make the development. Development will take the beach to a certain standard of a business operation that it will turn its own profits from the concessionaires and the sales of food and beverage and gifts and those kind of things. If it defeats the whole purpose now, if you can go to those beaches and bring your food, because the concessionaires won't make any money and so on.
Let us say you have a
but we won't charge them. So we're not double charging. We're going to say, listen, you don't have to pay to go in, but there'll be great food there. I mean, you don't have to cook at home.
That's the free ones.
Just buy your jerky.
That's the free ones. You know, because
those
you have
are
a
the free
family
ones,
of 5
right?
or 6, and they're going, and they just want a little day to let this thing
and
out of
our
their
focus at TEF is that because we are spending the public's funds in developing the public beach, we didn't think that we need to then charge
Of
the
course,
public
there's a
again
little
afterwards.
Yes, and some of the private beaches, I think some people are thinking of that. You really have to pay to go in, and then you have to buy the food. Let me go to Alison Morris, Facebook. Is there any, and this is not for a comment, just to show that people are connected to this point that was raised. Is there any thought being given to having beach access at regular distances along our shoreline? So large private entities alongside each other cannot just block the public out. So we've discussed that already. Let me go up here. There is somebody, Paul Burke, dealing with matters to do with Montego Bay. Will the foreshore in Montego Bay be by dead end on the hip strip be closed off to the public? Some of it has already been closed off, and it seems more is being dumped up. Is NEPA going to allow this? Is that you, or is that Mr. McKenzie? Yes? Mr. McKenzie? On Zoom. Dead End Beach. Mobe. Make sure you unmute.
Thank you very much again for that question. I just wanted to just touch on the previous question about the spacing of access. Right now, along the North Coast, on average, once you're along the North Coast Road, the furthest you'll be away from a public point of access is 1 to 1.5 kilometers. And we want to improve on that going forward, right? So that's the idea, so that we have more access to the beach, not just being at any one point along the North Coast, being a kilometer or a kilometer and a half away from the beach.
All
Right.
right.
What the second question? Could you remind me again?
That was from Paul Burke about Dead End in Montego Bay.
Oh, Dead End, right? Dead End Beach.
Yeah.
Right. So back in the day, right along that stretch, Kent Avenue, you could access the beach from either end, but because of the expansion on the airport runway, that area was blocked off. And then you had the beach right along that seawall. So that little beach, Sunset, in front of the Standards International, going back to the then, we had a stretch of beach. But over time, we've had significant erosion. And there's a property there that had applied and eventually got a license to do beach recreation, reconstruction. So it's not about removing access. It was the fact that there was the need to rehabilitate and to renourish that area to provide for beach use in association with that hotel property.
May I ask you to, yes?
Regarding Montego Bay is that we are coming to the end of a massive beach development for the public in Montego Bay called the Closed Harbour Beach Project.
What is it called?
Closed Harbour Beach.
Closed Harbour Beach.
Or some people call it Dump Up Beach for.
Okay, Dump Up.
And that is the area. I went there just last week to have a look at it. It's looking very impressive. If you think of the Emancipation Park here in Kingston, think of a larger version of that in Montego Bay. It has a running track, has facilities there as well, parking and so on. And it also has a beach, an impressive beach. So we can look forward to that. The UDC has indicated that in this first quarter is when they're going to have the opening. So Montego Bay can look forward to that.
Thank you, Doc. Let me just say that we had said we would have used half an hour for comments and questions, but I was told that I could extend it a little bit, so the organizers on the outside tell me if you want me to extend for 10 or 15 minutes because there are more questions and comments. And Paul also says, Mr. Burke also wants to bring to your attention that Sunset Beach needs a bathroom and people are defecating and urinating all over. You need to look into that, sir. All right, so we have now, I'm looking at questions that are coming from so many. Peter Edwards, considering some of the new recommendations for ensuring access to the foreshore, will existing hotels and other private entities be asked to retroactively provide access to the public? Retroactively. Ms. Guthrie?
So this is a very sensitive issue. The policy does not advocate for retroactive access. However, we did say that in the policy, we have a policy recommendation that the hotels we will promote what we call a hotel beach pass system. And this is to allow the public to have access to these these beaches connected to the hotels. So the policy does not yet, it could be a recommendation from the public, but the policy does not yet ask for retroactive access to hotel beaches for the foreshore, but it does recommend a hotel beach pass system to allow the public to have right of access or access to the hotel, these beaches associated with the hotel, but it's promoting and encouraging the hotel sector to do so.
I can tell you we have 15 more minutes for questions and comments, and they are here fast and furious. Pat Williams, and this is JIS on their platform. In the case of a community located on the beach, which has gained prescriptive rights to the beach for over 20 years, and this has been recently restricted, how can it be regained? Should I ask?
There is, Mr. McKenzie can from NEPA can give more fulsome comments on this, but there are provisions in the Beach Control Act now that speaks to prescriptive rights of the individual. So I think it says at least if 5 persons advocate or indicate that their prescriptive rights have been infringed on, the authority has the mandate to take up that case on their behalf. So Mr. McKenzie can give us more detail, but there are provisions in the Beach Control Act about this particular issue already.
Mr. McKenzie, we're reaching out to you again. There you are, ready?
Right, so that's one of the key responsibilities of the Beach Control Authority, again, to secure the rights of communities in terms of their beach and their prescriptive rights. So as Ms. Guthrie indicated, we need to know that specific case, and we certainly will take that up. Our legal department will certainly take that up to have that matter addressed. But certainly if there's a community beach, we would have expected that the right to that beach would have been enshrined in that the covenant of that property. And certainly if there are instances now where persons, community members are blocked from entering, then we, the Beach Control Authority, will take up that matter.
All right, thank you, sir. And the very same way that we're concerned about beaches in Clarendon, Joshua says, what about Mammy Bay, Steertown Fishing Beach? Any comments on that? Are you looking into that?
It's the approach, as a periodic approach, and we're just starting with a selected set of beaches. But I think the overall goal and outcome is for us to have improved access rights to all beaches and a standard, a quality, a good quality for all beaches. And this is going to take time, so step by step.
And
right?
all of us have to play our part. Seriously, like if you go to the beach, whether it's free or you have to pay to go and clean up after yourself before you leave, man. Put the stuff in the bin. And then the beaches need to provide the bins. That's another story.
Can I tell you,
yes?
what we need to do, is to see the shift towards inclusivity and towards this kind of consultation is just a reflection of the government's move and thrust towards all of us having a part to play, a role and a responsibility. And the discussion on beach access and management is just one element of our movement towards introduction of more sustainable practices and developing a more sustainable and resilient Jamaica. And it's connected because you see the ministry, our new and dynamic ministry, focuses not just on beaches but on the impact of climate change, which is connected to beaches. Because when you hear us speak about erosion, a lot of that has to do with the impact of climate change. And so many of our projects that we have, even in the climate change division, will support and enhance our ability to withstand those impacts and protect our beaches.
Something just crossed my mind, not for comment or for you to answer a question. I hope we're looking at how we are taking care of our waterfalls. That's another matter. This matter is about beaches, but it's something we need to consider seriously. Gavin on Twitter, do we have in the policy the right of preferential access to the public without a cost for the foreshore and beaches? Not the landside activities or properties of private landowners.
Right.
Ms. Guthrie?
So, yes. So, as I said, the policy prescribes or recommends that access to the foreshore be a right. And that right would be entrenched in law. And so that would be through an amendment to the Beach Control Act. So it is not our intention for you to pay to access the foreshore. So once it's not private property, you definitely will not pay to access the foreshore. The policy is geared towards increasing the public's access to the foreshore, and there will be no cost to access the foreshore.
Speaking about money, Lola on Twitter, will a fee also be recommended, or will it be a regular $100 for a day pass, the hotel, for you to get access to the hotel property? I don't know if we could answer that at this point, but
I wish we could answer.
You could?
I wish we could.
You wish you could, exactly.
Exactly,
you know. All right, let me go back to Facebook. Damian Coombs. I live in the North Coast in St. Anne. The government has taken away all the beaches from us in Mammy Bay, given to, and he names the hotels, Rio Hotels and other private interests. Now we, the people, have nowhere to go. What has happened in that area? Do they have access to free beaches there? Or is it the hotel strip that has commandeered the land there for beaches, or the beaches there, I should say?
I believe there's a combination. There are beaches that the private sector owns, but I believe that there are also beaches there that are accessible to the public. In fact, we have a proposal in to help to rehabilitate the one, I forgot the name of it, but where Island, is it Island Village? Fantasy Beach? Right, that one is one of them that we're looking at. Fantasy.
Okay, Fantasy Beach.
Right.
Okay.
So So we are working on that, and the whole idea is that what we're blessed with is that we have so many beaches. So the whole idea is to go and develop other beaches so that our locals will have access to beaches.
On that strip, it's like every 1 point something kilometers you find a beach, you know, which is, but people want to have access. Now, Billy Wilmot. Thank you, Billy, for bringing us back to this area now. And this is on Facebook. The Jamaica Surfing Association is concerned about the non-recognition of Jamaica's numerous unlisted surfing beaches or / locations around the eastern seaboard. These locations are naturally existing treasures. You tell me about polished diamonds, you know. Naturally existing treasures which must be protected and public access ensured. You know, out at Wikiwaki and that area out there, the surfing takes place, Cape Lodge Beach, Copacabana, and that general area. So,
yes. Yes, this was omitted from our policy, and in fact we have received the comments from the association about the recognition of these surfing beaches in the policy. So we're happy that we've received those comments, and they will definitely be taken on board in the revision of the policy.
Great. And down the road, JA on Twitter, that's the handle. Are there any plans to increase public beach cleanups this year? Also, is the Dr. Beach program still on? I think many different people and organizations engage in public beach cleanup, am I correct? And many other people adopt areas that they want to help out in terms of taking care of. I'm just trying to navigate all of this. How will the policy treat with the public access rights and their enforcement?
Again, access rights to the foreshore will be prescribed as an amendment in the Beach Control Act, and of course once it is legislated, then the Beach Control Authority, which is the Natural Resources Conservation Authority, NEPA, will be charged with the enforcement of that right.
All right. Butler Remlap. Oops, love the name. I'm interested to see how all these inclusive hotels will adapt, and this is on Facebook, as most of them built solely for tourists and guests. Well, if you just allow me to say that they're working through some of this with the various properties, and yes, changes will have to occur.
And we have now existing some hotels which have this hotel beach pass system already. They have a separate access point for persons who are not guests of the hotel, and then they can access the beach. Sometimes it's through a charge to access the facilities. So there are hotels already which have this access system available to the public.
There,
yes,
but
yes.
More needs to be done.
Definitely,
right.
and that's what the policy is advocating. Yes.
Now, Chris Randemary is raising something that no one has raised just yet. There are beaches with high occurrences of drowning. Are there any plans to address this? Public education, maybe?
Yes.
Places over, I know along in St. Elizabeth and the Treasure Beach area, where unfortunately there was one such thing a few months ago, and people were saying signage wasn't there. Because we have to, and while I pause, I was very happy to hear us refer to ensuring that stuff is done for members of the persons with disabilities for that community. But do you ever stop to think that maybe for persons who are blind, we need to have audio notices?
So to be able to provide the facilities to protect the persons who will use the beach and use the beach for bathing, you have to manage that. It's a cost. So when you hear us speaking about free of charge, there's less focus on profit generation and more focus on getting in some revenue that will be allow for you to manage the space properly. Part of that management and provision of amenities will have to be provision of the requisite lifeguards and persons who have the professional skills to be able to provide that kind of support for persons who will utilize the space. Similar, I would say, in relation to being able to put in place infrastructure when it comes down to persons with disabilities. It's all at a cost. Because one thing we've learned in Jamaica is we're good at starting, but when it comes down to maintaining, that's where we have to do some work. And so the contemplation now, at the start, in terms of putting in place the necessary structure to have co-management, ownership, collaboration, and the thought of the money that would be necessary to manage it, all of those are important and relevant discussions right now.
And let me just acknowledge Tony Aiken, who's been signing for this program, and she's done such an excellent job for so many events for those persons who are hearing impaired or deaf. You know, so that's one element of the community of persons with disabilities. And then we have people who need access who use wheelchairs or walkers. And then we have people who need access who are blind. And I'm happy to hear that you're looking at it. I'm passionate about that. Very passionate about that.
And we're going to have, we have invited already, we have sent a letter to the Combined Disabilities Association inviting them for a one-on-one consultation so that we can have a better appreciation for the issues and concerns of this group so that we can have those reflected in the policy as well.
I'm happy to hear that. Last question here. Might I remind you, all your questions and comments that we are not able to take today will be posted on the various platforms in question and answer format, and you can also send your comments and questions to the policy comments at megjc.gov.jm. The last question here is Sean J. Sean and then J. Could someone clarify how does a policy ensure or address perpendicular access to beaches, even if there's private interest?
Okay, so where we have private interest, of course, the private property owner has the right. And the policy is not intending to infringe on the rights of private property owners. But of course, the government can have negotiations, discussions with private property owners to allow for access ways to be created. So that is the intention, that we will have that kind of discussion with private property owners to see how best we can have access ways to allow for that perpendicular access to accessing the foreshore. So it is a discussion, a negotiation, because the government can acquire lands. And so we will, if necessary, acquire lands for public access. And of course, if it's a private property, it has to be a discussion, negotiation with the private property owner.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to close off. But let me thank you, Ms. Gillian Guthrie, for your presentation. Dr. Carey Wallace of TEF, thank you so much. Mrs. Charlene Roy Myrie of NEPA, want to thank you. The Honorable Minister, Pernell Charles Jr., Minister with a big, big responsibility. You hear the comments, hear the questions, and you have to, collaborate with policy and with NEPA and with TEF. And of course, Mrs. Audrey Sewell, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change. I want to thank you for your participation, whether it was on Facebook, Twitter, GIS, a platform, YouTube, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you got involved and you've made your comments and you've asked your questions, and those will be taken into consideration to ensure that this policy going forward represents what you would like. Thanks to you for participating in our virtual town hall for the Beach Access and Management Policy Green Paper. Also thanks to the various persons I have already listed, and the Jamaica Information Service for their work in ensuring that this event was carried to you in your various places. And I want to thank Mr. Mackenzie on Zoom for really coming up there and ensuring that we had some of the questions answered. Please be reminded that the Green Paper is available for download at mhurecc.gov.jm/policies. Let me repeat that because it's very important. The Green Paper is available at M as in mango, hurecc.gov.jm/policies. Copies of the Green Paper are also available for viewing at all municipal corporations and all parish libraries. Comments on the Green Paper should be sent within 26 days after this town hall meeting, so you have up until February 28. The Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change looks forward to receiving your written comments. And if you are in an environment, in a home, in a community with senior citizens who may not be able to make their comments, discuss it with them, take their comments and share it for the use of ensuring that we have a policy that takes everyone and every thought and every idea into consideration. I am Faye Ellington, on behalf of all those who work behind the scenes to ensure the technical people, the people who work with the technology to ensure that this happened today. Thank you so much. Walk good, stay safe, remember your physical distancing. I've got my mask here like everybody else who is ready. So once we get up, we don our masks and we take care of ourselves, and in doing so, we take care of others. Be safe.